Hi, first graders. It's Miss Vanderhoff. I'm going to be doing writing with you this week, and so I'm so excited. We're going to write a realistic fiction story together. Now, I know you guys have been like champions of realistic fiction. You've written a lot of realistic fiction. You planned out your characters and added a problem and a solution. So this week, we're going to take our realistic fiction stories one step further. You may have been hearing from your teachers. I know this week in our reading lessons, you're going to learn all about this. Is that a lot of times when authors write a story, they have a message that they're trying to teach the reader. So we call it the author's message. It's like the lesson that you can learn from the story. And so that's what great writers do, and so that's what we're going to do in our writing. We're going to choose a message, a lesson we want to teach the person reading our story, and then we're going to write our story in a way that teaches that lesson. So our learning target today is by the end of today, I will be able to plan a realistic fiction story that teaches a lesson. So today we're going to start planning our story, and then over the course of this week, we're going to write that story. And I'm thinking, since I know you've written some realistic fiction stories with the same characters for a while, today we're going to invent some new characters. So we'll go through the process of planning out our story, inventing some characters, thinking what we want to teach with our story, thinking of a problem our characters are going to have, and then how they're going to solve that problem. And so I shared with you some planning paper, so it's going to look like this. So you could either choose to use this planning paper, or you might choose to just write it on a piece of paper if you are not able to print it. I actually don't have a working printer in my home, so I'm just going to write it on a piece of paper, but you also have this if you want to print it. But the main things we want to write on our story, we have the author's message or lesson. So we're going to think what we want to teach through our story. And then we're going to have our characters, our setting, the problem, or another word for the problem is the conflict. And then we want to have a couple attempts to solve it that don't work out, because it's not a very exciting story if there's a problem and then they solve it right away. So you got to give them some challenges, some things that don't quite work yet, and then the final solution, or another name for that is the resolution. And so when we're talking about author's message, I'll share with you a couple examples of what author's messages might look like. So I'm going to show my screen. Hold on a second. Okay. So there's two words we're going to talk about. One of them is the theme. The theme is like the big idea that a story is mostly about. And I know that last week with Miss Lennon, you were learning about the theme of poems. So any piece of writing has a theme, and it's a big idea. And then under the theme, there's something called the author's message, and that's the lesson that the author is trying to teach the reader, and it's usually related to the theme. And usually the author's message is a lesson the characters learn when they solve their problem. So some themes you might see: friendship is a big theme in stories, sharing, honesty, kindness, and under each of those is a lesson that authors can teach. So for example, with the lesson of honesty, you might share, it's always best to be honest, even when telling the truth will get you in trouble. And I bet you can think of a time in your life that that's a lesson that you've learned, and so you can write a story like that. The story that I want to write today is going to be a story about friendship, and here's the message that I want to write. So it goes like this, and I chose this message because I've seen this happen a lot in our class in recess and with past classes that I've had. So it's a big lesson we need to learn. So the lesson is, when a friend plays with someone else, it doesn't mean that they like you any less. Friends can play with other people and still stay friends. Now, I'm wondering if you're thinking of a time where you felt that way, that maybe you had a friend and they played with somebody else, and it made you feel really upset. But then later on you realize, it's okay. Sometimes friends can play with other people, and it doesn't mean that we're not friends anymore. All right, so I chose my message, and so then I'm going to plan out some characters. I'm going to plan out a setting, the conflict that's going to bring about that message. So I'm going to switch to my paper. So hold on while I show the paper. Okay. Okay. So you should be able to see my paper. I've got Rashid here. He's going to help us write our story. And so on our paper, the first thing it says is title, but it's going to take me a while to think of the title. Usually title actually comes last, so I'm going to leave that part for last. But first, I already chose my message. The message I wanted to teach is about friendship, and it's that It's that even if it's that friends can play with other friends and it doesn't take away from their friendship. Friends. All right, so I've got my message that I want to teach through my story. And so everything I do in my story, I want it to lead up to teaching the character that lesson. So again, my lesson, my author's message, friends can play with other people and it doesn't take away from their friendship. So now I need some characters. So I was thinking, this is a problem that comes up a lot in first grade. So I'm going to make my characters some first graders. So my first one, I'll make my first one, her name's Amber. And I'll say, I got to say some things about her. So how old is she? What does she look like? Who are her friends? What does she like to do? So I'll say Amber. I'll say she's 7 years old, because most of us are about 7 years old. And I'll say she's in first grade. And I'll say that she likes climbing on the infinity wall. I know that's a lot of us like to do. And I'll say, what else would she like? Maybe she likes baking. And maybe she has an older sister named Ellie. Ellie's not going to be in this story, but I was thinking maybe I'll put her in a different story. This story is going to take place in the school. And I got to give her a best friend, because this is a friend issue, and so I got to pick a friend. So she's going to be best friends with a girl named Michaela. Best friend is Michaela. All right, so now I got my first character. Now I got to write about Michaela, her friend. Michaela, so she's also going to be 7 years old. 7 years old. She's also going to be in first grade. And she's going to be in the same class. They're going to be friends in the same class. So same class as Amber. And I'll say that she likes playing with Amber. They play together every day. And I'll say that that she's a really fast runner. All right, so we have some things about Amber. We have some things about Michaela. And then we know that the story is going to be about how friends can play with other people and it doesn't take away from their friendship. So I'm thinking that Amber and Michaela like to play together all the time, every day. But then one day, maybe Michaela's going to play with someone else. So I have to think of one more character that Michaela might play with. So I'll say her name is Rachel. And what do we know about Rachel? So she's also 7 years old, because they're all in the same class. And she's in the same class as Amber and Michaela. And let me think about something about her. Maybe she's like the fastest girl in first grade. That would be pretty cool. So fastest. All right, so we got 3 characters now. I think that's enough to start. We might add some more characters in later. And now our setting. Setting means when and where is the story happening. So since it's about friends playing, and I was thinking about playing at recess, so I'm going to say the setting is going to be on the playground. Playground at school. And I'll say it's at recess time. All right, so I've got the message I want to teach. I have 3 characters, and I have where and when the story is going to happen. So now I'm going to plan, what is the problem or conflict? What kind of problem are they going to have? And I got to think how my problem is going to lead us to teach this lesson. So if the lesson's about friends playing with other people, then I guess the problem would be that maybe Amber and Michaela always play together, but one day Michaela wants to play with someone else, and that makes Amber feel really upset. So the problem is Michaela wants to play with Rachel, and Amber feels left out. So now I'm thinking Amber's the main character. We're thinking about what feeling she's having. So she sees her friend go play with someone else and she feels left out. And so now we have the attempts to solve the problem. We don't want to jump all the way to the solution right away because then the story's going to be so short and it's not going to be exciting to read. We want to give them a couple ways to try to solve it that don't quite work out, and then eventually we land on a solution that works. So let me think about what have I seen happen before when someone feels left out because someone doesn't play with them. Maybe, I've seen sometimes when people feel upset like this, sometimes they get mad at the friend and they say like, you're not my friend anymore. I've seen that happen. So maybe Amber's going to be upset and she'll say, you're not my friend anymore. Now, do you think that's going to solve the problem? No, I feel like that's going to make Michaela upset. And then maybe Amber, what else might she do? Maybe since after she said that, she's going to walk off and she's going to go cry in the corner. Maybe she's just not going to play at all at recess. So Amber will cry. Maybe she'll sit on the bench and sit on the bench. But then she's going to still be upset, and that's not really going to make her feel any better, and that's not going to really help her friendship. So now we got to think of the solution or the resolution. What's going to actually fix the problem? So let me think back. When I've ever seen this situation happen, I think the best thing to do is if Amber went to Michaela and told how she felt, and they had a talk about it. So maybe the solution could be Amber talks to Michaela and tells her how she feels, and they work it out. And how might they work it out? Maybe Michaela would say, maybe they work out like a schedule, like maybe Michaela can play with Rachel on Monday and then with Amber on Tuesday, something like that. So maybe take turns for days to play. All right, so I have my plan now. That's all I'm going to do for today. Tomorrow we'll start writing. So far we have our plan. I chose an author's message. So the big message I want to teach through this story is that friends can play with other people and it doesn't take away from their friendship. Then I chose a couple characters and I described what we know about them, tell about how old they are, what they like to do, who their friends are. I picked a setting, the playground at school during recess time, and then I figure out what the problem will be, what she's going to try that's not going to work, and then finally what is she going to try that's going to work and solve the problem. And then this part is going to lead to Amber learning the lesson. So tomorrow, let me go back. Well, today, I hope that you make a plan for your story, that you think of an author's message. I'm going to share a couple examples at pages I showed you can look at and choose a couple examples. You could think about stories that you've read and choose an author's message. And then think about some brand new characters you haven't written a story about before. And then think about how you're going to teach that message with those characters. And then tomorrow we'll start writing. So today, just make your plan. You can use the paper I shared or use just a blank piece of paper like I used today. Make your plan and tomorrow we'll write. I'll see you guys tomorrow.